Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
Woo, how we doing? It feels as though the cloud is lifting a little bit with this pandemic. What do you think?
Yeah, it definitely does. But although here in the stubborn, hard-headed South, it was, in a lot of areas, it was like it didn't even hit. I mean, there were still people like shaking hands, you know, standing in line at Walmart, no masks.
Virus ain't going to stop me from showing you a little respect, boy.
Well, government, they're just trying to scare y'all and staying home anyways. You know, that's the thing. You know, that virus ain't even real. We had the flu for years. You know, it's.
Yeah, I know that shit bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, I was telling my wife.
The tyrannical government's just trying to get their grasps on us and keep us at home.
Well, our county, the county that I live in, kind of did like an unofficial open on May 1st. I say unofficial because it really wasn't broadcasted or anything, except for like on social media, and then it was kind of talked about, but it was never confirmed as far as I know. I don't watch the news that much, but it was never confirmed. And then all of a sudden, like we went out yesterday, and there's people everywhere. Like there's people standing in line at Dairy Queen and the Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart. They're insane. Like everything was packed. It looked open. And I was like, man, if someone from California came here right now, they think we were absolutely insane. You know, it's just because they're still locked down. And from what I can tell, I mean, you know, I get most of my information about California from like Twitter. So, but it seems like they're still pretty locked down. Probably even in Vegas too, right? Still pretty locked down.
Yeah, the overhead shots of the strip are still quite shocking. Just bare, like you might see like one or two cars.
Yeah, man. See, if that strip was down here in the South, bro, we'd already be back gambling. We probably would have never left. We'd be like, fuck you. I got
shoot out the glass in the front doors of the MGM and just start firing things up.
That's right. Dude, I'm serious. There's a lot of...
There ain't no dealer here. I guess I won.
Yeah. That's fine. Nobody shows up. That's a better chance of me winning. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. In a lot of aspects, it was like it never happened, and that's kind of sad to say, I guess. But at the same time, I don't think we had any higher cases than anywhere else. So, I guess you could take it for what it's worth. It's not like we're leading in COVID-19.
I'm starting to get to the point where it almost feels like we have to reopen a little bit just to see what's going to happen. Because we could stay shut in forever, and the cases would continue to go down, but at some point you have to go back to your life, you know, so we almost have to open in stages, see how it reacts, and then go from there. You know, it may go back to being shut down again. Who knows? Right.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. You kind of have to test the waters at some point in time. Somebody has to pull that trigger and be like, all right, guys, let's see what it's like out there. You know, open the vault door.
Yeah, like when you're in a fallout shelter, you know, it's like you've been down there 10 years. Somebody's got to poke their head out.
That's right.
We're running out of rations in here.
That's right. Got to go out there and explore.
Yeah. Well, we got a good case to explore.
Super.
Do you like my segue there?
I did. That was very good. Very good.
This is the prom night murders, man. We got a really interesting case for you. So let's hear your intro and let's dive into this thing.
All right, let's do it.
I guess what we want to talk to you about is when was the last time you were home?
At about 4:45 Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening.
Detective or police officer up there had you in the room and told your parents had been murdered. What was your reaction to that?
I was shocked. Started crying. I mean, it stunned me. I didn't know how it could happen. I don't know why it would happen.
Was there anybody in the family you really didn't get along with? How about your stepmother?
We didn't get along real well. I mean, we talked hi-bye type thing, but we never really talked to each other or anything. I mean, I didn't hate her or anything, but we just we tolerated each other.
And how about your stepsisters?
Which ones? All three of them. What about them?
Did you get along with them?
Oh, I get along with the girls great. I just love the girls.
Did you and your dad get in any arguments Saturday?
No, we had a real good day Saturday. We got along real well.
What do you mean you and your dad had a real good day?
Saturday we didn't argue at all. He was really. He said that I'd been doing a pretty good job of shaping up and everything.
So do you know who killed your mother and father? Or your father and...
No, I really don't. I don't know who would want to.
Did you have anything to do with it?
No, I didn't. Me and my father didn't get along sometimes. And sometimes I'd be really upset with him. But we always worked things out. I could sit back later and see where he was coming from.
Did it get kind of rough for you as far as the him telling you he didn't want you to go to prom or a day after prom party or whatever?
It did. I was upset and I kept trying to talk him into it, and at first he kept saying no, and then he finally agreed to let me go.
They're gonna clean up your looks with all the lies in the books to make a citizen out of you. 'Cause they sleep with a gun, keep an eye on your son, so they can watch all the things you do. Because the drugs never work, they're gonna give you a smirk, 'cause they got methods of keeping you clean. Gonna rip off your head, your aspirations to shreds, another cog in the murder machine. They said teenagers scared the living shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So darken your clothes or strike a violent pose. Maybe they'll leave you alone, but not me. One more time. Oh, teenagers scared the living shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So darken your clothes or strike a violent pose. Maybe they'll leave you alone, but not me. Teenagers scare the shit out of me.
All right, our case this week, we're calling it the Prom Night Murders. You could basically attribute this to one person, but there's more to the story than that, and it's perfect timing, right? It is prom season, right?
Right, although it's not really happening, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of seniors are probably upset about it, but now looking back at my prom, I'm like, that happened 12
Overrated,
years ago,
right?
I guess. I'm like, I could have done without it, really.
Yeah.
I could have done without all the stress and the what do you wear when you pick them up, and we got to go here and we got to have money for this, and I don't know. I just, but then again, I'm not a teenager. Teenagers are a totally different frame of mind, man.
That's right. I think Jeff Pelley, pandemic or not, would have made this happen somehow. He would have had the prom happen because there was no stopping him from having his prom night.
Right. Yeah, he probably would have just been jamming there by himself. Whatever he's got to do with his, with his rigged up Mustang, however he has to get there.
He would have gone to every kid in his high school senior class front door and ripped them out of their house and we're having a prom. I don't care if we all die.
Right.
Maybe just killed my family for this.
And you remember that song by My Chemical Romance? I think it was called Teenagers or something. It was like, teenagers scare the living shit out of me. You remember that song? Dude,
Yep.
this is why. And I remember, because I was a teenager when that song came out, right? So I didn't, I was like, okay, whatever, cool. I feel like a badass. I'm a teenager. But now at 30, I totally get it. I'm like, yeah, because teenagers are so unpredictable and they're so self-centered. But they're also full of energy, and they're also intelligent, and their brains are still developing, but
they're almost full grown. Like there's a lot of big teenagers out there. They're capable of just about anything that an adult is capable of, but
exactly.
They're irrational and emotional and
selfish.
And selfish mostly, for sure. They still have that mindset that like a 2-year-old has, where I should get what I want all the time.
Yes,
and nothing's stopping me.
Right. And when you were a teenager and you had something that you wanted to do for you, bro, you could do amazing things. You could do amazing things. And the biggest case, I guess, regarding the defense of this was that there's no way he could have done it because of the time. I call bullshit. because when I was a teenager, I could get shit done, bro.
Oh, for sure. When you're
if it was
motivated for
me.
something you want, like you said, like if there was something you wanted to buy and your parents wouldn't buy it for you, they said you had to work, like you would bust your ass. I would go mow 50 lawns
Yes.
to get what I wanted. But at the same time, my parents couldn't get me to mow their lawn without me bitching the whole way through, you know?
Exactly. Shit, they probably couldn't even get you to pick up your damn clothes off the floor.
Right.
Much less mow the lawn. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's teenagers, man. They got a different type of motivation. And when that's tapped into, they are scary. I get it. I get the song now.
Yeah. Well, let's get the backstory on this. Let's talk about this blended family here. This is kind of a twisted version of the
The Brady Bunch, right?
Brady Bunch. Yeah, this is a
Very twisted version.
family of two widowers that had gotten together with their own set of kids, and then blended these families together, and they had different parenting perspectives. They had different perspectives on life overall. I would say, Bob Pelley and Dawn, this woman he gets with, and they had been raising their children in different ways, and then they threw them together, and it kind of created for an odd household.
Right.
And how it even got to that point was weird. Like Bob's transition to South Bend and where they were living at the time of this occurrence in 1989. But yeah, let's start talking about Bob Pelley. He was born in northern Kentucky, raised in Ohio. Bob had, as his sister, John Boso later recalled, an early call to the ministry, but after changing his mind and deciding to attend Youngstown State University in the late 60s, he'd reversed himself yet again and enrolled in a religiously affiliated school. So he was back and forth early on, wanted to pursue, a career in religion, then changed his mind and then changed back to it again. While attending Mount Vernon Nazarene University in Ohio, he'd met and married Ava Joy Armstrong, whose parents, Jack and Mary Armstrong, lived across the Ohio River from Cincinnati in Kenton County, Kentucky. A year or so after the marriage, Joy Pelley, as she was called, gave birth to Robert Jeffrey Pelley, and he would end up going by Jeff in Kenton County. December 10th, 1971, Jeff Pelley would share a birthday with Michael Clark Duncan, Emily Dickinson, and Bobby Flay. And there's a reason, I'm sure you can read between the lines, as to why we're saying his birthday is affiliated with these people, because Jeff may or may not have been the killer.
Oh, did we do something? Did we do something with birthdays in the show?
I don't know. Maybe this is your first time listening and you have no idea.
Yeah, that's right. You'll find out.
Michael Clark Duncan, though, rest in peace. One of the great actors. I loved him.
Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
dude. And Emily Dickinson, obviously a great poet, and Bobby Flay, cooking up
Great
steaks for
chef?
you, flaying up them steaks.
I thought he was a chef when I saw his name.
I don't
I'm
know.
like,
Yeah.
Flay. And it sounds so much like filet, which makes it
Yeah.
easy to remember.
I wonder if that was his birth name or if he changed it just to become a better chef.
Dude, if your last name was Flay and then you became a chef, I mean, it's a very short stretch to call it filet. I mean, you could,
Right.
and he's got plenty of money to change it. He should consider that.
You saw what Joe Burrow did down there in LSU, right? When he took the Cajun name or whatever. He made his name from BORROW to with the UX for the Cajun spelling. He actually did that for the championship game. I think he
yeah.
actually had that put on the back of
pretty
his
cool,
jersey.
I
It
guess.
blew up, and then the jersey sells for that fake last name that he created. Like the Bobby Flay should have just went with that. He should have just went with Filet, Bobby Filet.
Yeah, exactly. That you could sell a lot of merch. See, Joe is already thinking this dude's going to make a lot of money in the NFL.
Oh, dude, he's a smart marketer and a great player. We'll see if he can turn the shitty Bengals organization around.
Yeah, he's not a miracle worker. We'll see.
Yeah, many have tried.
Even
There's a
though,
big
what was
anchor
it,
dragging
Red
down that
Rifle couldn't even
organization
do it.
you got to try and pull. We'll see.
Now the Bengals were hot for a minute when Andy and then they had Ocho Cinco. They were like
Yeah.
the team to beat there for.
They
a
were on
couple
Hard
years.
Knocks.
Yeah,
Child, please. Remember that was his
they were a
favorite
force
saying?
to be reckoned with.
Ocho Cinco would say "child, please" to everybody. It was basically him saying "fuck you."
Yeah.
Child,
yeah.
please.
Child, please.
That was his way of being able to tell the owner "fuck you."
Right. Looks better in the papers.
Right. So yeah, a little bit after 3 years, a daughter followed after Jeff was born. A daughter followed, Jacqueline K. Pelley, known as Jackie. By that time, Bob Pelley had gone into the growing field of computer networking. Both Bob and Joy were members as their respective families of the Church of the Nazarene, an evangelical missionary sect that believes that perfection of the soul is possible, that original sin can be erased by the heartfelt acceptance of and perfect obedience to the Holy Spirit. So I'm sure you know
That
a little bit
perfect
about
obedience
Nazarene.
part. Yeah, that perfect obedience part is the scary stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's how, because if you hold your children to that standard, how do you enforce that? How do you enforce
I'm
that?
of the belief that it can't be done.
It can't.
It's just
That's
breaking all the rules
obvious.
of nature.
It obviously can't be done. None of us are perfect. Like,
Kids are gonna fuck up. They're not
perfect
perfect.
obedience. Get out of here. Like, hey, if you never did anything wrong ever as a child, like you were disabled.
I don't want to know
Like,
you, first of all, if you legitimately didn't.
Yeah.
Kind of
You're
weirdo would that be?
You're a freaking weirdo. You just believe everything everybody told you and just follow directions. Yeah, that's a
Got
boring
no
life.
fun stories at all.
Right. Who cares if they told you the stove is hot? Touch that thing, man. Touch it once. I'm kidding. Don't touch it, kids.
Stick your hand in a weed eater like I did just to see how it feels.
Right. Just see how it feels.
And then let your mom feel bad about it for 20 years before you finally tell her that you did it on purpose.
Dude, don't worry. You're gonna get your payback.
I fucking know.
Little guy, man. He's a little ball of energy.
He's a
isn't he?
madman. Yeah.
Yep. He's gonna be just like his daddy.
Yeah. So, with as far as the Nazarenes, as such, repudiation of one's prior sins with sincere repentance can cleanse the soul completely. One can be reborn in this life in this spirit of Jesus, according to the Nazarene belief. So that's what they were following at the time. And then by the late 70s, the Pelley family had relocated first to Orlando, Florida by 1979 or 1980 to Cape Coral near Fort Myers. City directories there from that time show that Bob was employed as a tech for the local telephone company, United Telephone, until about 1984. Around that year, Bob changed jobs, taking position with Landmark Bank, a South Florida financial institution. Bob worked at the bank's data processing headquarters in Fort Myers. And it's at this bank that things get kind of weird and that you get an alternate maybe motive as to how this family was later murdered in regards to the bank. In the summer of 1983, Bob and Joy bought a small house in Cape Coral. The future seemed bright, but then tragedy struck. Joy Pelley was diagnosed with breast cancer, and on February 24th, 1985, she died in the hospital in Fort Myers at the age of 34. So she was taken very young by cancer. Quite sad, and it changed the trajectory of this young family's lives. Bob was 33 at the time, Jeff was 13, and Jackie was 10. And this shows you a little insight into this family and Bob Pelley, his, the depth of his religion and how serious he took it. He would not let these kids cry. Jackie later said, quote, "That's the way we were raised. The day that Mom died, prior to her death, Dad sat us down on the couch and said, no matter whether she lived or died, we had to go on with our lives and we weren't to be crying about it." And he told Jeff to go do his homework and told me that I had to go to school the next morning and that was typical of Dad to be that way. So after she died, it was just business as usual. They weren't allowed to properly grieve. And within a few months, Bob had found a new woman with her own family and put these two families together.
Right.
It was. Go ahead.
I was just going to say with the religious aspect of it, I think they see it as a celebration. And if he's already had a lot of this religious background, I'm sure though he's going through all these jobs, I'm sure his religious affiliation is still somewhat the same, his belief system. And if
the belief that she's gone to a better place legitimately, and you truly believe that, so why
exactly
grieve
like
about
it's
it?
It's more of a celebration.
We should be happy for her. She's where we want to be.
Right. Exactly. And there's no point in crying and being sad about it here. And
still,
who knows?
Your young
maybe,
kids, your kids are 13 and 10. They still need their mother. Like I get that you believe you're happy for that she's in a better place, but still the kids are going to miss her dearly on earth while they're still here.
Absolutely.
And want to see her and don't want to have to wait, how many 60, 70, 80 years to finally see her again, if you believe in that. So
right.
I still think it's right to let your kids grieve, regardless of your belief.
Everyone should grieve, go through a grieving process.
Otherwise, you're going to be carrying it around with you deep below, and you're not going to know why you're acting the way you are, but it's because you never properly handled that situation. Just like, we talk about therapy and whatnot. If you have dark thoughts or whatever, to get those out,
Yeah, because they're going to come out sooner or later.
Yep.
And the way that they come out is crucial.
So 6 months later, that summer, at a family gathering in Ohio, Bob met Dawn Hayes Huber, a widowed mother of 3 daughters, Jessica then 6, Janelle 5, and Jolene 3. So she had 3 daughters of her own. Dawn's first husband, Ed Huber, had died in an accident in Ohio 8 months prior, although some said it was actually suicide, so it's a little point of contention there as to how he died, but it's kind of irrelevant, really. By November of 1985, Bob and Dawn had married. The merger of their 2 families was not without difficulties. Jeff, for one, thought his father had been too fast to join with Dawn. The pain of losing his mother and seeing her replaced as the object of his father's affection so soon after Joy's death created resentments of Dawn and of Bob.
That's typical, That's
Yeah. Oh,
that's
for sure.
par for
You
the
can't do
course.
that.
Yeah. Especially at Jeff's age at the time. But it was fast, though, right? Like both of them lost their significant others
Under a year.
Yeah, and then 9 months later, they're married.
Yeah, it was 8 months for Dawn, and it was only 6 months for Bob since his wife had died.
Oh my God, that just seems so
That's
sudden.
pretty quick for the kids. I mean, I can understand the spouse moving on that quickly, but the kids, that's quick.
But you know what, though?
To try and accept a new mother figure or father figure, after
That's
your
right.
parent died.
But here's something that just occurred to me is that if Bob had already made up his mind that he was going to be a pastor or go into that field at this point or in any time in the future, you kind of can't show up to pastor a church as a single father with a couple of kids.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't do that. They want to see a family unit. They want to see a whole family working together to show that you have interest in all ages in your congregation. Does that make sense?
Yep, 100%.
I don't think I've ever known a
'Cause,
pastor to not have a full family.
Even if it was a scenario where his wife died of breast cancer, still it's just like he's gonna. How many people do you have to explain that to for them to understand that? Because a lot of people might assume that you had a divorce or something like that, and that's a bad image for a pastor to have.
Exactly. Yep, you're right.
So I did get a book to study for this case. It's called The Prom Night Murders by Carlton Smith, and allegedly, according to the author of this, Carlton Smith, in Jeff's mind, his father seemed to have abandoned his original family for a new one, and in place of his mother was another younger woman who seemed diffident, altogether incapable of asserting herself, at least with Bob's children. So the new stepmother that he had, he says Jeff found her hard or incapable of asserting herself. But it's like, would you want this? How would that be taken by Jeff or his sister, for her to come in and just immediately start asserting herself? I think that's probably a good thing that she didn't come in and right away start trying to do that, take over the mother spot. I don't know. I guess you couldn't win in that situation as a step parent. It's like you don't want to go in and start laying down the law, but you also don't want to be a pushover,
Oh yeah, it's definitely a tough situation. But why? Yeah, but like you said, why would he want her to? But also, why would she want to? I mean, you want these kids to accept you. And I think there's that time period in a new relationship, especially when you have children, where it's like the other one is just like that fun parent for a while. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Until they kind of get more comfortable with each other. That co-parenting, man, and then parenting, half siblings and things. That's an art right there. Like I have high respect for people who do that well, because that's very difficult. It's very difficult.
No doubt. Also, Dawn was only 13 years older than her stepson, Jeff, who was clearly not happy with her sudden appearance in the previously close-knit lives of the Pelley family. Then, sometime later, something happened, something that would be shrouded in mystery, confusion, and rumor for the next 2 decades, and that pertains to the bank that Bob was working at that we talked about a little bit earlier. As Bob's daughter, Jackie, was to recall the story fragmentary through it was someone who was only 12 years old at the time. She first heard about it. There was a problem at the bank. Money had gone missing, so the story went, perhaps such as $1 million, or possibly there was a problem with money laundering. Jackie never knew the details, but one night in the fall of 1986, as she recalled, her father got a telephone call summoning him to the bank's fortress-like computer headquarters in Fort Myers. The following night, according to Jackie, the Pelleys were leaving Cape Coral. As Jackie put it later, they left in the middle of the night for a place they had never been before, and even more significantly, they changed their religious denomination. No longer were they at the Church of Nazarene, they were now members of the United Brethren. The next thing Jackie knew, they were all in Lakeville, Indiana, just a few miles from South Bend, where her father had taken a position as pastor of the Olive Branch Church of Osborne on Osborne Road. So they just uprooted their life in Florida and up and leave and head for South Bend in Lakeville, Indiana. And it's
Right.
very odd, pertaining to the bank. It's like, what exactly happened with that?
It is very odd. And it is also odd that it took this type of circumstance for Bob to finally be a pastor.
Yeah.
Because when you take a job as a pastor, one of the things that's done, like, as we saw with their house, they lived in a parsonage, on the church property, which is very popular in the Midwest and here in the South. There's 2 or 3 churches down my road, and they all have little parsonages beside them where the pastor can live. So it's like, if you're trying to uproot and go to a new place, it's probably the easiest way because you have an entire congregation there to help you. You instantly have an abundance of friends and
a network
help
that you tap into.
and a place to stay immediately.
Right.
That's not part of your salary. It's not taking, you know what I mean? And it just struck me as odd that this is what drove him to finally be a pastor. That kind of hit me weird.
No doubt.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and he was doing well in Florida. He had transformed himself from a promising computer maven into a fairly impoverished evangelical preacher in a small, out-of-the-way place in northern Indiana. It was very sudden, and like we said, he was doing well in Florida, and everything was going fine. So it's just kind of odd that didn't seem to be planned out. Just like boom, overnight they were gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The book speculated what caused her father to abruptly take his family out of Cape Coral. Over the years, there were bits and pieces, fragments of whatever had happened that no one really talked about. There was something about some sort of dispute with superiors at the bank. The bank had recently been acquired by a larger bank, but not before some employees of the old bank had been caught up in a $50 million money laundering scandal involving a Colombian who was washing cocaine proceeds for the Cali cartel. This is, I didn't even think about it, but this is Florida in the 80s, right?
Yes.
Like, oof, that was was the spot for cocaine. I mean, that's what.
Yes.
That's
the
what
Cali
the whole
cartel
plot line to Scarface is. Miami in the 80s, the cocaine cowboys and all that stuff.
Dude, and the Cali cartel was no one to mess with. Like,
No.
they had resources. I mean, we saw that like in the first episode of Narcos. Well, I think
Right.
first season, because I only watched the first season. Once Pablo was gone, I was like, eh. But
Right.
the second season was about the Cali cartel, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe I'll go back and watch that. But their presence was huge in the U.S., especially in Florida, South Florida.
Yeah, no, Narcos is amazing. Yeah, the first season, I believe, was the Medellin cartel, and then the second season was the Cali cartel.
Yeah.
So good, man. Netflix. If you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. But yeah, they're scary. You don't want to play around with them, and it sounds as though this bank was playing around with them, and Bob Pelley was a part of it. And then all of a sudden he flees the area and heads up to the Midwest, and
That is sketchy. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
That seems sketchy in a lot of ways.
yeah. This Colombian that had just been arrested a month before Joy Pelley died. The bank employees were arrested for cooking the bank's books to permit the laundering. Was this why her father had suddenly pulled up stakes in South Florida to move to, all of places, Lakeville, Indiana? Was this why he'd abandoned his career in the then burgeoning computerized banking field to become a pastor in such an out-of-the-way place as Lakeville, Indiana, at a church of a different denomination at a fraction of his former salary? So these are the questions that were raised regarding this.
Good questions.
And then it leads to a very crazy, situation where the whole family's murdered.
Well,
and
and
there's questions.
And that's the cartel way.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not just going to hurt you because you might not be afraid. You might be like, well, I'll risk going against them if they would just kill me.
Right.
If to knowing that my family would be set up for life, but knowing that the cartel would kill you and your family, yeah, that makes it a little scarier.
No doubt. A lot of people are watching binging Ozark and all that right now. Very similar situation there.
Oh,
You see what the cartel is capable of as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so The book questioned more. Did Bob Pelley know too much? Was someone willing to kill the entire family to keep Bob's mouth shut? Jackie didn't know, but the seeds of doubt and suspicion of Florida, of the banks, of the drug pushers, and later even of the police in both Indiana and Florida were sown. Don's oldest daughter, Jessie, recalled it was largely a happy existence, however, once they were up in Indiana, apart from the brooding presence of her stepbrother, Jeff. Now, Jeff Pelley apparently was a bully to his stepsisters. In a book she released in 2019, nearly 30 years after the incident, Jessie recalled that Jeff taunted her constantly, but the two incidents were particularly alarming were when she was around 7. She camped out in the backyard with her siblings, dressed in baklava and pretending to be a kidnapper. Jeff dragged her out of the tent by her feet in the middle of the night. On another occasion, he threatened to throw a hairdryer in the tub as she took a bath.
Whoa.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but I mean, he didn't do it. And that just sounds like an older brother, stepbrother or not, like the kind of things that an older brother would do.
Yeah,
to me.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess scaring her in the middle of the night. Yeah, that's definitely something my brother would do. But threatening to throw the hairdryer in the bathtub, man, I don't know. I don't play with that kind of shit. You know,
Right.
like if I ever did that, my dad would slap the hell out of me. Like that's,
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah,
You
that's
should.
you just don't fuck around with stuff like that, man. That's not a joke.
Right. Yeah, and in retrospect, it looks a lot more gruesome, you know.
Yeah, it does. It does. That's true too.
Yeah. Jesse said that it was more than just child's play. It was the stuff nightmares are made of. Which leads us to the spring of 1989. Things weren't going smoothly in the Pelley household. Even by their standards, 17-year-old Jeff was at war with his reverend father. The family dynamics pitted Jeff and Jackie against the rest of the family, particularly Dawn. Quote, "We didn't always get along with Dawn or see eye to eye with her," Jackie told ABC News in a retrospective on Jeff's case. "We did not agree with the way Dawn was raising the girls because it was different than the way we were raised." So as we mentioned, the two parents had come from different schools of thought when it comes to raising children, and then they were thrown together. Their kids were thrown together, and the kids disagree on how they should be raised, and the parents disagree on how the kids should be being raised, and all that.
Right.
The feelings were mutual on other side. Jessica said during the same program, quote, "I just remember a lot of rules," she said. "Like in church, we couldn't talk at all. We had to sit there and listen. If we did talk, we got a spanking when we got home." So,
Yeah, that was one thing that she said about Bob was that he was a big spanker. He spanked her a lot. Talking
yeah,
about
a little
Jesse.
odd when it's not even your, your blood child. It's not your kid, and you've only maybe, I don't know how long had they been together at this point? How quickly did he start spanking, Dawn's kids? Like, I'd be a little weird about that
Right.
if I were Dawn,
Well, now you are talking about in the 80s. It's a little bit more old school form of thought. The man is the head of the household. You know what I mean? Like his
He's a
word
reverend in a
goes.
church.
He's a reverend in a church. He's respected in that community, in that little circle.
He's
which-
laying the hand of God.
Right, right. So it's looked at a little bit differently, and I mean, some people may be like, well, why didn't their mother speak up? Probably because she had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And she had already invested herself in this new life. And she needed someone to provide for her.
Yeah. Well, sometime in April of 1989, Jeff had been grounded, throwing a serious wrench into his prom night plans. So it was prom night coming up.
Can't even go to prom
And he's- Yeah, and in bad timing, he's at war with his father during this time.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go with his girlfriend, Darla. He couldn't imagine her being at the prom without him dancing with somebody else. I'm sure these are the images that were going through his head.
Oh, you know it. Because Darla was going to go.
Yeah. Part of the grounding of young Jeff involved Bob prohibiting Jeff from driving his prized Ford Mustang and attending any activities around the prom, including a class trip to the Great America Amusement Park outside of Chicago. To ensure that Jeff did not simply grab some keys and drive uninsured, Bob told a friend that he had removed part of the engine from the Mustang. So this is pretty serious stuff. I mean, they really are at war, and he's taking this punishment of his son seriously. As we mentioned, he's a reverend. He means business. He ain't
Right.
playing around. Jeff's not going to disobey him. Shortly before prom night, Jeff told Darla, however, that he was lobbying his father to ease the restrictions for the weekend. You imagine Jeff on his best behavior trying to kiss ass to his dad so he could, in some capacity participate in prom night.
Oh, you know
Shortly
it.
before prom night, Jeff told Darla that he was lobbying this. Eventually, Jeff received permission to attend the prom on the condition that Bob drove him and Darla. And imagine that's embarrassing. Instead of being able to drive your date in your Mustang,
Right.
you
And
got your
that's
dad driving you. That's just not going to hang. That's not going to fly.
But we forgot to mention why he was in trouble. He was in trouble for a burglary,
Yeah.
right?
It's in
Jeff was in
it's
trouble
in here
for a
at some
burglary.
point, but yeah, he had and his dad turned him in on that, by the way. His dad found out that he
Yeah.
had stolen something from someone's house, and his dad turned him into the police.
Well, he had to. I mean, with his position in the community, you kind of have to.
Right.
If it
That's
comes
true.
out that you were harboring your son, who's a burglar, like you have to
Right.
lay down the law, especially when they're young,
Mm-hmm.
because it's an excuse, right? Like, oh, he's just a teenager. Kids, boys will be boys. They'll do crazy shit. But I mean, for Bob to then be like, well, you can go, but I got to drive you. I mean, I think that's more than fair. Honestly.
True.
Like if I got arrested.
True, but if you're Jeff,
Bro, if I
that's
got
that's
arrested-
embarrassing.
No,
Right.
yeah, it's not for Jeff, obviously. Because, he lives in Jeff world, like all teenagers. They live in that little world.
Right. And somehow, shortly after Bob agreed to, let Jeff go if he drove him, supposedly he also shortly after that, he told Jeff that he had a change of heart and that he would allow Jeff to attend all prom-related events on his own. That's what Jeff told Darla, his sister. And so they think things are progressing quickly. All of a sudden, Jeff's getting all these, rights. It seems a little odd, especially when you know how strict Bob is. It doesn't seem like his character to just flip and be like, okay, you can do it all yourself. I don't care. Just doesn't sound right to me.
No, not at all.
He told Darla, too, to keep the news quiet because, quote, it was a sore subject amongst the family. This conflicted with testimony of 5 people at Jeff's later trial that said that Jeff was only going to the actual dance and that Bob was driving him. So, yeah, the common belief was that things hadn't changed as far as Bob was only agreeing to let Jeff go if he drove him and his date to the prom, and that was that. And there wasn't going to be any going to Chicago to the amusement park and all that.
Right.
So on that day of April 30th, 1989, Jeff went to work at McDonald's as usual that Sunday morning, returning home in the early afternoon, that Saturday morning, returning home in the early afternoon. This was prom day, Saturday, April 30th, 1989. The entire Pelley family was present when he returned home from McDonald's, except Jackie and Jessica, who were spending the weekend with friends. As the prom approached, friends of Jeff's began dropping by the parsonage where the Pelleys lived. Now, this is that type of home. It was a parsonage, it was almost like a
Right.
community home. Like it was always available. Like lights were always on. The door was always unlocked. People could come and go. And as
Yeah.
usual, friends of all the different kids were showing up, and friends of Jeff's began dropping by where the Pelleys lived at around 4:30. Kim, a former girlfriend, and her mother and prom date stopped by to show off the young lady's prom dress. Kim later testified that she felt tension at the house and that Jeff was particularly quiet and not dressed for the prom. He was casually dressed in a pink and blue shirt and jeans. Another friend, Matt, stopped by for a few minutes until he realized that he left his date's corsage at home. He departed and at about 5:15 passed the house, noticing Jeff's car in the driveway.
Way to go, Matt.
So it appeared to Jeff's friends and other people that were attending the prom that Jeff was not going. It's by all clues would lead you to believe that. His car is sitting in the driveway. He's not dressed for the prom when they stopped by. And then Darla, Jeff's date, that was, it was supposed to be his date that night for prom, received a phone call from Jeff at around 5:20 p.m. Jeff said that he was at a nearby Amoco gas station and called to let her know that he was experiencing car trouble and was running late. The attendants later told police that Jeff was dressed in a black shirt and jeans. So,
Oh, he changed clothes.
according to he changed clothes, but he still wasn't dressed for a prom quite yet.
Right.
So maybe what you would wear, without the suit jacket. I don't know what kind of, I guess jeans, you wouldn't wear those either. So
Nah,
he still
not
was
in the
not ready to
80s.
go to the prom.
No,
Right.
they're still doing tuxes. I mean, we're still doing tuxes
Yeah.
now, so.
Exactly. By 5:30 p.m., Jeff and Darla were at a friend's house where Jeff changed into a tuxedo. The two couples then left for a prom night dinner. Meanwhile, back at the Pelley household, a family friend who had been expecting Bob and Dawn to stop by to see her in her prom dress showed up on the porch on her way to the dance. She found that all of the Pelley's vehicles except Jeff's were there where they expected to be. She did notice that the house was uncharacteristically silent and dark. All of the window shades were drawn and the doors were locked. So very odd for the Pelley household to be locked down like this, lights off, doors locked.
Especially having young girls that typically were playing outside in the yard.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's 7:30. You know, it's not
Right.
That's just that was very strange for them. A lot of the people in the community talked about how strange it was, and also their dog was left out as well. I think, which they said was odd.
And Jeff's vehicle's gone.
But only Jeff's vehicle. So somebody had to be there. I mean, if he has a Mustang, I mean it's a 4-seater at best, you know?
Yeah. And I want to know how did Jeff get his, because supposedly Bob had taken the engine part out, right? Did he figure that out? I don't know.
It said, I saw a couple articles that said that it was basically he had adjusted the carburetor in a certain way where the car wouldn't run right. And Jeff figured it out. I mean, carburetors back in the day, those engines aren't that hard to work on. I'm sure that was a rite of passage to know how to tune your carburetor. And if you have a flathead screwdriver or a key or a quarter, I mean, you know, you can make it happen. And I think that's what Jeff did.
Yeah. So Jeff and Darla enjoyed a dinner at South Bend at around 7:30 p.m., arrived at the prom. He and Darla attended a post-prom party at a local bowling alley and then spent the night at a sleepover at a friend's house. So Jeff's got he's basically getting to do whatever he wants this night. He's not even kind of coming home at this point. And at 7 a.m. on Sunday, April 30th, Jeff and Darla left the sleepover to go to get Darla's car and some money. While Darla was retrieving money from her house, Jeff spoke with Darla's mother, who said she was surprised that he was going to the Great America theme park. Jeff responded that he had a, quote, 2-day pass from the Pelley prison. Jeff and Darla and the group from the slumber party proceeded to Great America. Now he's doing everything involving this prom, going to Great America. At Great America, Jeff became quiet and told Darla that, quote, he had a feeling that something was wrong and felt like something wasn't right inside. And it's at this point you have to wonder if he did do this, that he's thinking this is about the time that what I've done is being discovered, and it's a sobering moment. He had his fun at the prom, and now it's time to face the music, kind of thing. Like, oh shit, what have I done? You know, was it worth it? Maybe.
That's the way I took it too, because I was like, oh, it's funny that as everything is dying down, now he's like, oh, I feel like something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, after you just lived probably at that point in his life, probably one of the greatest nights of his life.
Yeah.
You know, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh, something was wrong. It just came out of nowhere.
Yep. No doubt. So yeah, the Pelley family was due to be at church. You know, he's the reverend, and by 9 a.m. that Sunday, you know, people at the church are wondering where's Bob. You know, he's always here by now. You know, he's probably I imagine would be the first one there.
Right, kind of crucial
on Sundays. Right, exactly. And so when he's not there, people start, you know, questioning, and they end up getting a skeleton key to his parsonage, to the Pelley family home. And someone from the church went inside to kind of look around, and the first thing they saw was in the hallway. They saw Bob's glasses laying on the floor, and they were kind of thrown off by that, and they basically said there's been a fight. And then within further looking, they discovered Bob was laying face up in the hallway with blood on his chest and arms and appeared to be dead. They then called 911, and then the responding ambulance. The trustees called an ambulance. After the paramedics arrived, they found the bodies of Dawn, Janel, and Jolene huddled together in the basement, dressed in everyday clothes. Each had been shot once from a distance of a few feet with the same shotgun. As they investigated the house, they noticed that the shotgun, Bob's shotgun that was usually hung up on a rack on the wall, was missing from the rack.
Yes.
And this was apparently the murder weapon was from within the own household. It was Bob's gun. Dawn had been shot in the temple, Janelle in the forehead, and Jolene just below her right eye. Bob had been shot twice with deer slugs from a 20-gauge shotgun, once in the chest and once in the neck. His feet were pointed toward the end of the hallway leading to Jeff's bedroom and the master bedroom. And he was dressed in everyday clothes rather than pajamas or church clothes. So they were led to believe that this didn't happen, you know, that morning before church. He wasn't dressed in his church clothes. It would have been the night before, most likely, because he was dressed in normal clothing, and it would have been before bed because he wasn't in pajamas. So they're trying to kind of piece this together.
Things are starting to narrow down real quick here.
Yeah, there was no sign also of burglary or forced entry, and the only item that anyone can identify as missing was Bob's 20-gauge Mossberg pump-action shotgun. Jessica told police that he saw the gun on the gun rack in Bob and Dawn's bedroom before she left to visit friends on Friday afternoon. Inside a washing machine was a small load consisting of a pink and blue shirt, blue jeans, and socks that had been thrown into a wash cycle. A luminol test of the washing machine cylinder was inconclusive, indicating either a reaction with blood or with phosphates found in laundry detergents used in 1989. So those detergents back in 89 were serious.
Yeah, apparently. And that's also a weird thing to wash. Like, who throws in one outfit? Like,
Someone who just murdered their family. And they got a prom to make.
That's the only person. Because otherwise your mom would be so pissed you just filled up that entire cylinder with water without throwing some other clothes in there. What the hell's wrong with you?
And you didn't even turn it on light load. You did heavy load, you prick.
You asshole. You did it on hot? You motherfucker.
Right. Police would note, quote, "It did not look like a burglary. It did not look like a home invasion. Detective Center recalled, as a detective, I saw the worst of the worst that morning, but we had a job to do. So immediately started talking about suspects. The one suspect that investigators began to look into almost immediately was Jeff Pelley. Center was familiar with Jeff Pelley. Just weeks before prom, Jeff was caught stealing CDs and some money from a nearby home, and Center worked the investigation. That's when Bob had turned his son in for that after discovering he had stolen things from someone.
Right.
Bob Pelley grounded Jeff for the burglary case. He could not go to the prom without his dad taking him. He could not go to dinner before the prom. He could not go to the after prom. The embarrassment of this father driving him to prom, Center said, was crushing to Jeff Pelley. I believe he killed his family, and then he was able to go to prom." So that was the lead investigator's belief right off the bat. And shortly after that, Jeff was somehow tracked down at the Great America by authorities and brought back to Lakeville. On the way home, Jeff, unprompted, said, quote, "He didn't do it," and asked Darla if she believed him. Jeff gave two statements to police, one at 4:45 a.m. in the presence of his grandparents. You can actually see some of that on YouTube.
Yes, I did watch that. That is interesting. His
Yeah,
body
and I think
language.
the fact that his grandparents were on each side of him gave him a little bit more confidence because he was pretty smooth talking for someone who was in that situation, but he also didn't seem very shook by the fact that his whole family was just killed either, you know?
No, he did not.
He's such an 80s kid. He's like something straight out of like the Breakfast Club, though. Like the haircut, the fucking like the jacket, the like running jacket or whatever that was, smoking jacket thing that he was wearing.
But definitely the
skinny,
poofy
tall
hair, though.
build. He was just totally could have been in an 80s movie.
No doubt.
So during the questioning, he said he stopped at Casey's gas station to fix his car. So there you go. There's fixing the Mustang, whatever. He was probably running like shit on the way to the gas station, and then he adjusted the carburetor there.
Now remember, Darla said
he might have even gotten help from someone at the gas station if he didn't know what he was doing.
Right. That's right. But then Darla said it was an Amoco station. So we already got some discrepancies
Casey's
here.
versus Amoco.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of a big difference there.
Yeah, and he told police at 7 p.m. He gave another statement and repeated the same story. However, by this time, police had questioned Darla, who told them that Jeff had called from the Amoco station. So yeah, they're finding some differences in his story. Mm-hmm. Jeff and something also I took from the interview. It's something small, but we've seen so many of these interrogations and stuff of suspects that we later found out did it. And one common thread is that they offer up stuff that's unnecessary. Like he kept saying, like, I don't know who would do this or why they would do it. You know, like that's something that an innocent person doesn't usually say. Like when they offer up more information like that, like, why would someone do this? It's like you're trying to draw attention away from yourself by saying that.
Right. And he probably is actually trying to think of a reason why somebody would do it. He's sitting there actually. He's like, no, seriously, can you give me some help? Because I'm really
offer me
trouble.
up an alternative theory here, please. Other
really
than
having trouble coming
me.
up with an alibi.
Right. Once investigators came out and accused Jeff of the murders, he, quote, slumped down in his chair, lowered his head, covered his eyes, then asked whether he could see Darla that night, whether he would go to jail that night, and whether he would get the electric chair.
Why would you ask that?
That doesn't sound like someone innocent to me.
Dude.
If you're innocent, you get angry, right, when you're accused, typically?
Yes.
You don't just look defeated like that, like, oh, shit, you got me.
No. And you definitely don't say shit about the death penalty if you're innocent.
Exactly.
I mean, that right there.
That sounds like someone who's already
coffin.
searching for a plea deal type of thing.
Exactly.
But that being said, like that's as far as it went. They didn't have any physical evidence. They didn't have any. I mean, his DNA was all over the house. Obviously, he lived there. The murder weapon was nowhere to be found. If he in fact did this, that was the smartest thing he did, was getting rid of that gun to where it was never found
and
again.
picking up the shell casings.
Picking up the shell casings. I mean, we're assuming he did this, right? Just based off of everything that we could find.
Yeah.
It is pretty incredible, the timeline, and how quickly he was able to do this, and then how quickly he was able to properly clean up everything. As we said, just the thought to pick up the shells, to get rid of, either clean the clothes or get rid of the clothes, to get rid of the murder weapon, lock up and leave, and then act completely normal. That's another thing. There's pictures of him being dipped on the dance floor by a friend. Like he was having the time of his life that night, and there was no signs that he had just murdered his family.
No, it was that teenage energy, bro. That teenage energy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It's not to be reckoned with when they get focused on something.
Yeah. So even with all of the signs pointing towards Jeff, and with his behavior during questioning of dipping his head and asking if he was going to be getting the electric chair and whatnot, prosecutors still initially declined to press charges on Jeff for murder, and eventually he moved on and married, had a son, and built a successful career as a computer consultant in Florida, and it would be 13 years. Yeah, the end. That's that.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Right. Kind of like our case that we did last week on Patreon, actually. The boy in the chimney.
Oh, God. Yes.
They're similar. No real closure in that one.
No. But
Good
I mean,
good
we
one,
pretty much know who did it, but yeah, no real closure.
Yeah. So almost 13 years would go by, and there actually is some closure to this one, and there's some justice served in the end, we believe. I mean, a lot of people still believe he's innocent, but 13 years would go by with Jeff living a normal life before his past finally caught up with him yet again. In 2002, a new prosecutor took a look at the case and decided to charge Pelley with 4 counts of homicide, even though there was no new evidence. Authorities arrested Jeff Pelley at a Los Angeles International Airport on his way home from a business trip. Frank Schaefer, then an assistant district attorney for St. Joseph's County, said that the case hinged mainly on Pelley's motive, his anger over prom, and the timeline of events on Saturday, April 29th, 1989. Jeff was arrested in 2002, but he did not go to trial for the murders until 2007, when he was 34 years old, due in large part to the legal wrangling between the state and defense about admissibility of evidence related to counseling the family that underwent in 1988 and 1989. So it took him 13 years, but I guess a new prosecutor came in and decided, you know what, I know you guys thought you didn't have enough, but I think we have enough to win in trial just based off the circumstantial evidence. There's so much overwhelming circumstantial evidence that I guess this prosecutor was still confident to get him convicted.
Yeah, and I agree. I think there's enough evidence.
It's really hard to imagine anyone else killing them, right? It just just the timeline, like you said, like the prosecutor said.
Also,
the timeline of events, like he is obviously at war with his father,
right?
And how could his in that hour in which he's sitting at home, not dressed for prom, to an hour later he's at a friend's house putting on a suit, to go to prom, and in that time his family was killed and he knows nothing about it. Yeah. Like if it was the cartel, like damn, that's some. No. They chose the perfect moment to make someone else look guilty, didn't they? Yes,
they did. But also, if it was the cartel, Jeff would be dead too, man. Don't get it twisted. Jeff would be dead.
Right, and so would the other daughters. The daughters that weren't home. There was 2 daughters that we barely mentioned.
Yes.
But yeah,
the girls that were at camp, they would they would be dead. I mean, they're not going to leave.
Jessica was at a friend's house. That was Dawn's. I believe, oldest daughter.
Yeah,
she was at a friend's house sleeping over, and then the oldest Pelley daughter was away at college or a camp or something. Yeah.
His biological sister was probably the only one that he wouldn't have killed.
But I agree. Jessica for sure would have been dead, and she knows it. She talks
Jessica
about it
would have been dead if she was there. The stepsister, all 3 stepsisters would have been dead if they were there. Because I mean, look, he took out only the people that he had an issue with at the house. Mm-hmm. I mean, he father was number 1. And then now you have witnesses, but you don't really care about them anyway. You're not emotionally connected to them. That woman's trying to be your mom. In his eyes, he's like, I don't give a shit about her. Mm-hmm. And then you can't leave the daughters. I mean,
right.
It just all adds up to him, man. It's just only one conclusion.
Yeah. So at Jeff's trial, the defense was that it was impossible for someone to meet the timeline established by the prosecution. In short, his case in chief was that the state's theory of the crimes was inconsistent with the laws of nature and human experience. Pelley argued that as a teenager with 20 minutes, could not kill 4 of his family members, put his clothes in the washing machine, pick up the shotgun shells, take a shower, get dressed, draw the blinds, lock the doors, fix his car, and dispose of the gun and shells.
Bet he can.
As we mentioned, teenagers scare the living shit out of me. They're capable of a lot more than we think, and
Yes.
really 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. What you take a 5-minute shower at most,
At most.
And then as far as like you take the gun and the shells with you, and on your way to the friend's house you throw them in a river or something like that, and most likely they're never seen again.
That's right.
Seen again. So both of those things right there can be done within a few minutes.
Or maybe he fixed his car at home, obviously, because how do you drive to a gas station and then fix your car? First off, that makes no freaking sense to me. So you fix the car at home, and then while you're quote unquote at the gas station, you are dumping the weapon and the shells.
Oh yeah, there you go. Jeff also wanted to present numerous statements that might explain an alternative theory of the crime. However, most of the evidence was ruled inadmissible. Rulings that have held up on appeal, he was not allowed to present evidence about would be these following things: Bob's role at the corrupt bank. So he wasn't allowed to really talk about Bob's strange dismissal at the bank and how they just fled and moved to another state.
That's
and
fair.
Took on a
That's
new
grasping.
life.
That's grasping. At straws.
But I mean, the defense should have been able to present alternative theories, in my opinion. Also, inconsistencies between statements made by Jackie and Jessica about the presence of the shotgun in the master bedroom that Friday. Also was not able to present how he did not have any bruising that might have resulted from the firing of many shots from a shotgun.
Okay,
Who would have bruising from shots from a shotgun? I don't understand.
You're not going to get bruising from a 20 gauge. Maybe from a 12 gauge. From a 12 gauge, you might get some bruising. But a 20 gauge at 17 years old, you're not going to have that much bruising. That's not even to be considered.
It took a lot to bruise me when I was a 17-year-old boy. Like you're pretty tough.
Exactly. You heal fast, too.
Yeah. And from firing a shotgun a few times, I don't know. The alleged presence of suspicious cars outside the parsonage in the days leading up to the murder. Supposedly, there was a report made to investigators in August of 2002 that a resident on the Pelley Street said that another person who also lived on the street told them they had seen a white limousine with Florida license plates in the area of the Pelley home on the day of the prom in 1989.
Yeah,
so
because
many
kids
years
take
later,
limousines to prom. Duh.
Yeah, and this isn't reported until 2002.
That's bullshit. And there's Florida license plates everywhere. Floridians, they get around. Dude, they're everywhere. Yeah. I saw just as many Florida license plates.
Because they're all retired old people that are just traveling around during summer, And
I saw just as many Florida license plates when I lived in Nevada as I do right here in the South. So I know Floridians, dude, they're everywhere. They get around, man.
And a limo? Who's going to go execute a family and drive a limo to do it?
They just roll away with like the freaking music bumping, popping champagne. Right. Yeah. I know. It just, a limousine, not your best getaway car. I wouldn't use that.
Jeff also wanted to argue that the prosecution was politically motivated to help the prosecutor during an election year. There's something to that. A lot of people get convicted during election years to make someone who wants to get reelected look good. That's definitely happened.
Yeah, but that just seems like another perk. It just seems like a little icing on the cake for that prosecutor.
Yeah. Jeff's blood sister, Jackie, has continued to fight for Jeff's release, presenting evidence she claims will exonerate her brother. According to an article in the South Bend Tribune, Jackie claimed to have uncovered the following evidence. Quote, another man who reportedly confessed to the crime. She said the man knows the details of the crime scene, not revealed to the general public. So, But who is this person? It's not out there. Robert Pelley also received a death threat in the weeks before the family was killed, she says, and despite an extensive search, no murder weapon of the Mossberg has ever been found, which we know. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that your brother's innocent just because the gun was never found.
Right.
Congrats. He was capable of pulling off a crime like that. That doesn't make him innocent. I mean, as far as like he got rid of evidence, good job.
Yeah, and also, he'd been grounded. It's not like he got grounded that Saturday and then all of a sudden hatched this plan within an hour. Like he'd been brewing on this.
Yeah, I think he got to a point leading up to the prom where he said, "I'm going to this prom no matter how I have to do it." And
Yeah.
and he tried. I think he tried, and he
tried
rallied with his father
Yeah.
to try and get it done without having to do this, and then it just wasn't happening, and then that was his last resort.
That's right. He went through plan A, plan B, and then he was like, I guess we're going to have to enact plan C here.
Yeah. Jesse Pelley, now a nursery school teacher, is convinced that she also would have been killed had she not been at a friend's house on the night of Jeff's prom. Quote, "Jeff hated me," said Jesse. "I would have died with the others if I'd been there." Remarkably, it only emerged in 2002 that Jeff might be the culprit. Initially, it was assumed that Bob had turned the gun on himself after slaughtering his family.
Then what do you do?
That's what I
Hide
had-
the gun dead? Makes no damn
Yeah,
sense.
seriously, right? How could that even?
Like, there's no gun beside him. You know how
There's no gun.
suicides
There's no
work?
shells. Like,
Oh, yeah, I immediately threw that theory out. I was like, get the hell out of here.
right. That's what I had in my head for years, said Jesse, who was raised by relatives. Quote, "I directed my anger towards Bob and toward my mother for marrying him, but the murders were a forbidden subject and nobody talked to me about them." Jesse last saw her stepbrother Jeff when she was 15. She says he invited her down to visit him at his Florida home. At the time, Jesse believed her stepfather had killed the family and then himself. One of the first questions Jeff asked her when she arrived in Florida was about who she thought committed the murders. Quote, "I thought it was weird that he asked me who I thought did it," she recalls. "It was done. It was over with. It was just kind of weird." Her opinion of who committed the murders changed enough, too, as we mentioned, when the investigators arrived at her home and explained that they were reopening the case and that the main suspect was now Jeff Pelley. She said, quote, "When I found out, it made sense to me because he was a very violent person," says Jesse. She would end up testifying against Jeff Pelley at her trial. Growing up, she says her stepbrother enjoyed being a bully and often took it beyond normal sibling rivalry, as we'd kind of gone through earlier.
Yeah.
Pretty creepy to think that he had invited her out to his home in Florida after he had gotten away with murder for a while.
Right. Well,
Almost makes you wonder, like, was he going to kill her if he knew she was going to testify against him? He probably would have killed her too when
I
she went
think-
down there, you know?
Yeah.
But she was oblivious. She thought that the father had done it.
I think that
He must have picked up on that.
Yeah, I think he just had a little bit of anxiety towards her because Jackie took his side, right? But Jessie was
Yeah.
his stepsister. So
Yeah,
he's like,
a wild card.
yeah, he's like, that's my only wild card. If I can kind of get to know her and gauge how she feels about this whole thing, maybe that'll kind of either put me at ease or let me know what I need to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Keep your
think you're
friends
right.
close and your enemies closer.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty creepy. At Pelley's 2006 trial, Schaefer argued that Jeff Pelley shot his father in an argument over prom and then had to get rid of the surviving witnesses, all within a roughly 30-minute time frame. Quote, "It was a very, very small window when the family could have been murdered, and it was very clear the only person who could have done this was Jeff," Schaefer said. After a 6-day trial, which included nearly 40 witnesses, jurors deliberated for 34 hours and returned a guilty verdict. Jeff Pelley, now 34 years old, was sentenced to 160 years in prison, 4 consecutive 40-year sentences. A court of appeals would end up reversing the conviction, however, in 2008, just to be followed in 2009. The Indiana Supreme Court upheld the conviction, and he is now incarcerated at the Wabash Correctional Facility near Terre Haute, Indiana. However, more than 3 decades after the murder, Jeff Pelley's case is still working its way through the courts. The Indiana University McKinney Wrongful Conviction Clinic is representing Jeff Pelley in a motion for post-conviction relief, and it plans to present evidence of his innocence later this year in 2020.
Looking forward to it.
There's actually a website as well, justiceforjeff.org, that was last updated on New Year's Eve of 2019. And the oldest sister of Dawn's, who was Jeff's stepsister, Jessie, who we keep talking about, she wrote a book called I Am Jessica, I believe last year. And she finally came out. She was quiet for like 30 years. She went into hiding.
Yeah.
She basically changed her identity, started her own family, and tried to move on from this. But then with Jeff's trials reappearing and all this stuff, she decided it was time to come out and tell her side of the story and help to get him locked away for what she now believes he had done to her family.
You know what something is really odd about this case though? You know, you had all this testimony from neighbors and friends and family and people visiting the house and coming and going, and no one heard the gunshots. I did not hear one thing about somebody saying, I heard a couple bangs at 5 o'clock or 5:15.
I feel like the nature of the parsonage, though, the fact that, like, it was a Saturday evening. Church wasn't in session, and then because they're living in a house on a like a large church property. I don't think they have like direct neighbors where they're right next door to someone.
Okay.
Like if you look at pictures, I think they had a little bit enough space to where a shotgun isn't as doesn't travel. The sound doesn't travel as well as
Yeah.
a pistol or a rifle. You know what I mean? A shotgun is,
And I guess
like a
not
different type of
inside
sound.
too.
Yeah, and indoors.
Yeah. And if other people are indoors. Yeah, I guess so. That just struck me as really odd.
That is true. But that regardless wouldn't change who killed the family. The fact is they were killed with shotgun or killed by a shotgun.
Yes.
Whether it was the cartel or Jeff, nobody hearing it is irrelevant, kind of. But yeah, it is odd that no one ever mentioned hearing the blasts for sure.
That just struck me as odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, a weird case, man. I'm interested to see what kind of evidence they bring out, though, claiming his innocence. Please,
I feel like
bring
we've
that
heard
to
it
me.
all. What more could they dig up?
That's what I'm saying.
That they wouldn't have already tried to present.
Well, you know how these innocent, whatever you call them, organizations, these innocence proven organizations, what they do is, if they get defeated, they don't announce that. They just kind of dip out. They just kind of go, they just fade away. They're like, oops, my bad. Let me step out the back door, and then we're all kind of like, hey, are you still trying to prove his innocence?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. There's just like you said, there's nothing really you can bring. There's no one else. If it was the cartel or something serious like that, why would they have waited 3 years to get him? They lived in that parsonage for 3 years.
Yeah, and why would they use his own shotgun? And why would they, why would there be no signs of entry? Why would they wouldn't care. They would kick in the door, kill the family, with their own weapons. I don't know. None of it makes it. Everything points to it being someone in the family.
No
and
doubt.
Jeff had the motive, and he wasn't killed coincidentally. He was at the prom an hour later. It's just
it's almost cut and dry, man. All but the confession.
Yeah.
All right.
That about does it. Why do my pits smell delicious? Oh, I do. I have to tell you, I tried something pretty crazy during this quarantine. But I guess it's not crazy because I'm in quarantine, so it really doesn't matter. Once I do this out in the public, then it's getting a little weird.
Okay.
I yesterday decided to experiment, and I did fireside in one armpit, and I did sailor in the other armpit.
How did that work out?
It was fine. Nobody noticed.
Smell like a ship on fire?
I felt like I was walking around with a little edge to me,
Oh.
Like you don't know the kind of life I'm living. I got 2 different deodorants in my armpits.
Right. I'd be super suspicious of you. I'd be like, what's with this guy? Is he trying to get away with something? So, some witnesses would be like, he kind of smelled like a salty sailor. And some people would be like, he smelled like a fresh campfire to me. Can't be the same guy.
Right? Whoever's standing on each side of me is going to have a different vibe.
Your dogs are probably like,
know.
what the hell is wrong with you? They only stand on one side. You can tell which scent they like the most.
Exactly.
Right? If you guys don't know what kind of scents we're talking about Oh My Gaia. Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. And like Lauren mentioned, he has a couple scents: Fireside, Sailor. There's vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk. That's one of my favorites. Coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack. There's tons to choose from, guys. And we have our very own scent called True Crime Pine. Has our old school podcast logo on it, the OG logo that we first started. Very cool. It's kind of a pine, cinnamon smell. It's definitely unisex, I would say. Anybody could wear this scent and pull it off. And because you guys are creepers, True Crime Guys listeners, you can get 15% off your order if you use the code word CREEPER, CREEPER, and you can get, like I said, you can get 15% off at ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com or at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram.
Do it.
Do it, guys. You
Also,
the price is good too, guys, compared to other organic deodorants, aluminum-free, paraben-free products. The price point is right.
yeah, and those little jars, they last a long time.
Yeah, and they're multi-purpose. You can reuse the jars, use them for other things.
Yep.
That way your plastic speed stick shit doesn't end up in the fucking ocean. You know?
There you go.
There you go.
Yep.
It's a win-win.
Yep. I want to thank you guys for going and rating and review the podcast. Even if you just go click 5 stars and throw some fire emojis in there, that works. If you don't want to take the time to write up something, if you're not, any good at writing, whatever, you don't know how to express yourself, it's all good. Just throw some fire emojis in, click 5 stars, or write a long thing too. That's great too. We also like to look at that. So I want to thank these people over the last couple of weeks that have gone and rated and reviewed the show on iTunes. Miss Levent. MSLVEMT said fun and informative, 5 stars. These guys most definitely make murder charming. Thank you. Twin Peaks D, great show. Keep it up, guys. 5 stars. Thank you. They were both in the U.S. Also in the U.S., Maddie Mateo Matthew, 5 stars. Great host and clear, entertaining stories. Thank you. I want to thank Amy K0085 in the U.S. Best true crime podcast, 5 stars. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
She said this podcast has been helping me get through the COVID quarantine. These guys do their research and they're hilarious. Thank you.
Thank you.
2BK fan in the U.S. said great podcast, 5 stars. Thank you. John Gilbert in the U.S. Actually, John Gilbert was the one who suggested this case. He
thanks,
rated
John.
and reviewed and suggested Jeff Pelley, Preacher's Son Kills Family, to attend prom. And, dude, there you go. You get your shout-out on the episode as well as the episode you wanted. So, man, you made out.
Dude, great case
Thank you. It was
suggestion.
a great suggestion.
Absolutely.
Definitely a great suggestion. Obviously, we went ahead and rolled with it. Janeth G89 in the U.S. Favorite podcast, 5 stars. Thank you. Laura Grimes in the U.S. said the best, 5 stars. Thank you. And that about does it in the last 2 weeks. And it's been 2 weeks because we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/truecrimeguys, where we did an exclusive episode last week on the boy in the chimney in Colorado.
That's right.
Interesting case that we think the common narrative of him maybe
Falling
being murdered,
into-
maybe being not. We have our own theories, and we even have a suspect who we believe did it, who's walking the streets right now potentially, and it's pretty scary. So
Absolutely.
if you have $2 to spare per month, like the price of a coffee, as they say,
That's right.
you can go over there, get that episode, and you can get a bunch of other bonus content. Like there's like 130 recordings or something on there. You got Michael's old show, Higher Thoughts, which there's 30-something episodes
Yeah, I
of
think
that
like
are still up on
35.
there. It's
Yeah.
a
They're not
great
going
time on there. You get our premium episodes. You get in on the drawing that we do whenever we get around to it. We do a drawing every now and then and give away free stuff to the patrons. And yeah, there's different tiers. You can get gold stickers if you're a $5 a month creeper, all that stuff. So yeah, definitely check out patreon.com/truecrimeguys.
Speaking of patrons, I have a special patron I want to give a shout out to for whatever reason, and I just like his name, and we talked about it. We gave him a shout out before when he became a patron, but you know what I'm talking about, Bud Larson.
Yeah.
Well, Bud Larson, I'm giving him a shout because he can't figure out how to leave us a review on Stitcher, and he said, I've been a $5 patron for about 8 months. He said, you guys got a customer for as long as you do this. If I could figure this shit out, you guys would get 5 stars, no doubt. So, Bud, I want to give you a shout, man. I appreciate it. You being a patron is worth more than any review, in my opinion. So,
Right.
Thank you. And you have the greatest broadcaster name I have ever heard of.
Stitcher is difficult to be fair too, with the reviews. Like the only way I can view the reviews we have on Stitcher is on a desktop. I can't do it on a phone or a mobile device. So
Yes,
maybe
that's aggravating.
maybe that's how you have to rate us and review us, is on a desktop as well. It's like who listens to podcasts on a desktop though, so like they didn't make it a little easier.
Yeah, right.
Seems as though there's no perfect podcast app, is there? Because I listened to that episode someone suggested as far as the whole way that Apple. Did you listen to that?
No.
It was, what was the Darknet Diaries? I think is the podcast, and it talks about the
algorithm.
the algorithm that Apple uses on their podcast app as far as rating podcasts and all that, and it's pretty bogus. And you have all these people in India who are basically reaching out to people in America that have podcasts or in all over the world and saying, hey, for $5, I will promote your podcast and I'll get it at the top of the charts, and it legitimately works. Like we're never going to do it because you could get banned for doing it if you get caught. And also, we'd rather just not be like that. But there are podcasts that pay people in India to like $5 to promote, and their show for a day or two will be at the top of the charts. And they do it with like, they have thousands. I listened to this whole episode. They have thousands of Apple IDs that they log into, and they subscribe to the said podcast of whoever paid them, like thousands of times, to the point where they rise up the charts that day, and they can even get to number 1, number 2 in their category.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's how those people reach out. Because when those people reach out, I always look at their profile and I'm like, you got like 20 followers. How the hell are you going to help us? But I see now.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's a whole scam they're working, where they have thousands of Apple IDs, and then all day long it's they're like, there's desk job over in India. There's people that do this for a living. They spend all day logging in and out of Apple IDs, subscribing to a podcast, downloading all the episodes, logging to a new one, subscribe, download all the episodes over and over and over again until your show rises the charts. It's not based off reviews. As a lot of people, as we believed for a while, like rate and review, and that'll help us rise. No, that doesn't do anything on the charts. It's all about your subscribers in a day. In any given day, how many people subscribe to your podcast? And it could be as few as 50 people subscribing to a said podcast in a day to rise you up the charts. It's about subscriptions and downloads, but mainly subscriptions.
Wow. Yeah, we're not doing any of that. You guys see, if we're on the charts, which we actually have been top 200 for the last few weeks, and if you guys see
it's
that,
legit when we
that's
are.
legit. That's organic. I don't have time to do that shit, or the extra money to blow on possibly getting scammed by somebody.
Nor would I want to fake it to make it. I'd rather be underground, like known as like one of the better underground ones, than be at the top and be a phony. You know?
Yeah, true that, man. True that. But yeah, if you guys still want more content, if you're already a patron and you listen to everything we have, guess what? We have another show. We have another show called Strange and Unexplained. And it's a True Crime Guys production. I get to host that one. So, and Lauren has a part that he plays in that show. It's a different dynamic.
Breaking down the cases like cardboard boxes.
That's
so
right.
Breaking down the.
That's what Lauren does. I had to make him one of the coolest intros I think I've ever made. But he deserves it. So, but the podcast is available everywhere you listen. We just released episode 5.
What's wrong with Aunt Diane? Great.
That's right. The Taconic freeway crash of 2009. Probably one of my favorite episodes to date. Not because of the tragedy, obviously, but just putting it all together and the speculation that ensued and everything around that case. But a lot of these cases are going to be unsolved or just strange cases that we bring you on that show. And it's a different format. It's a little more serious, but you can't recreate what we have here in True Crime Guys. So it's a little different flavor. But again, that's Strange and Unexplained, and that's available wherever you listen. I know for a fact it's available on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. I mean, what else are you using? If you're not using one of those, what are you doing with your life? Get out of it.
Right.
But it's available everywhere. It takes a little searching. And if you have to, search True Crime Guys, and it should pull it up. But guys, if you could, go subscribe to that show. And then you can also support that show on Patreon at patreon.com/S&U podcast. So I appreciate all the support from that show. We both do. And we're trying to grow this thing, guys. And we appreciate all the listens, all the reviews. So
We've been so steady. Knock on wood. I got some beams right next to me. As far as just putting out content every week, we've been rocking it. We haven't been releasing old Patrons anymore. We've been nutting up and just putting out stuff every week, and I'm pretty proud of that. So we want to keep this train rolling and help you guys get through this quarantine. Hopefully we're on the back nine of this thing, and maybe by next week we'll be even closer. So we'll see you with another Freeloader episode next week, guys. Keep creeping.
Yep. Keep creeping, guys.
See ya.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder, get murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.